Welcome back to another episode of Serving Up. I'm your host, Shaun Sullivan, and today we're diving into the world of elite badminton with Olympic bronze medalist, Commonwealth medalist, European Games champion, and one half of Britain's most successful double parent, Marcus Ellis. This conversation, we go all the way back to Huddersfield, talk about his local sessions when he first picked up a racket, long drives and the sacrifices that his parents made to help him get to where he got. The grind, the 7-year grind where he finally broke through, opens up on his partnership with Chris Langridge, how it formed, how it worked, and the unlikely journey that led them to that unforgettable Olympic run in Rio 2016. Talk about the pressure, expectations, mindset, and heartbreak. It's just brutal honesty on a selection of topics and selections of battles that helped shape his career. And we also talk about fatherhood and coaching and the launch of Badminton Skills with Chris and Jethro Binns, who's been on a previous episode with us, and how that's helped reshape Marcus's purpose in the sport. Before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by Oliver UK, racket pioneer since 1938, and of course ACC Leisure, helping secure the future of leisure in the UK. Okay, let's get into it with Marcus. Good afternoon, Marcus. You well?
I'm very well, thank you. You?
Yes, not too bad, thank you. No worries at all. I mean, we also have mutual friend Jethro, very, very keen to have you on to discuss the recent Badminton Skills that you've sort of worked on together, obviously, as well with your doubles partner, Chris. Before we get into all that, though, I want to go right back to the start. How did you first get into badminton?
I must have been about 6 years old, I think. My dad played really socially. He played at a local club. I actually don't know if he actually played for the team competitively, but he went down just once a week to play very socially. And I think I just started going mainly because he had to babysit me through that period. I'm assuming on that day. And yeah, I went along, and most of the time I was sat there, and then eventually at some point I must have had a racket in my hand, and someone very kindly took me onto court and started throwing shuttles to me to hit, and I'll try to hit. And yeah, and I think I got a real buzz for it, and probably the first time that I felt like there was something that I could always improve on. I felt like I was almost like a baby again, when you're like learning something new every single time you go to play. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I've never played that shot before, or so yeah, that, and there was just not everything else kind of like fell to the wayside a little bit. I don't know why it was specifically badminton, because I did play a few other sports.
What else did you play?
I'm very into rackets in general.
Okay.
Any sort of tennis, table tennis. I had a little go at squash as well, but we didn't have many facilities near us. And so at school, I was playing football as well, quite a lot. But I just didn't take to any of them the same I did to badminton. And I think when I think it was still 2 or 3 years went by. I think I was probably 9, and I started going to an actual coaching session, like a big group on a Sunday. Again, quite local. And again, just every single week, it was like the highlight for me at that age. I was looking forward to it all week, and I just, I couldn't wait to go.
So when did you start taking it a little bit more seriously then?
So I think when I went to that session, it very quickly escalated. So I went from going on this training session on a Sunday, very locally in Huddersfield, which is where I grew up. I then ended up, I think within the space of 2 years, traveling to Leeds 3 to 4 times per week, because there was sessions there that were like higher level, and people I could play against my age who were better than me, and yeah, and it's nearly an hour's drive in either direction. So from a very young age, it was a very big commitment, especially for probably my mum and at the time. It wasn't a commitment for me. It was complete enjoyment. But for my mum and dad, throughout the week, they were, from about 10 years old, they were probably not home most of the weeknights, because they'd alternate taking me to training.
How were they with all that? To say an hour there and back is, a big commitment in between working and everything as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how they always made it work. I think one of the days this was when I got to secondary school. They actually took. I left about 30-40 minutes before the end of school, so I could get to the session in time. And at that age, you think like that is like silly, like you're giving up your education at that point. But again, I didn't think twice about it. It was just something to me. I was like, yeah, let's 100%. Let's do it. And they made it work. It was really good.
No, fair play to that. That's the sort of the thing that a lot of people don't see, is it we have some people who are just like can walk to their sports centre and happy days, and then there's people like you who, if it wasn't for your parents, you wouldn't be going to that squad.
I mean, absolutely not. There were some people in Leeds, they probably could have, walked to that training session in 10 minutes. So, in that sense, they were really lucky. But, I consider myself very lucky that my parents could actually make it work. It was very, very hard for them, but actually a lot of parents wouldn't even be able to make it work because, they wouldn't be getting home till 5-6 o'clock in an evening. And then, for me, that was, it was almost too late to get to my sessions. So it'd be a question to ask them how they managed to make it work, but they certainly did a very good job.
No, fair play to them. So how did sort of the national pathway work at like a junior level for you then? Obviously, with it being like singles, doubles, when did they pick that, or how does that work?
Yeah, so around like when I started playing the national tournaments around 10, 11 years old, you played just every discipline you could, whether it was singles, doubles, or mixed doubles as well. You played all of them. It wasn't until I was maybe 17 before the national coaches, because once you're on the program, you'll be playing international tournaments and things like that. I think around 17, they kind of edge you in a direction. So based on how your junior career has been going, they will start to be like, yeah, you're probably more of a singles player, or maybe you're more of a doubles. And they won't say you're not playing this anymore. It'll just be like little things about, in selections for team tournaments that, that you'll find yourself, you've only been selected for doubles and mixed, and you've never really been put in singles. And eventually you just kind of, you feel your way into that event. And that, I think it's probably, at some point, it's probably for the best that they do that. But I still feel like from when I was 10 or 11, playing all of the disciplines was really useful for me, because I'm sure it's the same in every sport. I'm sure, with however many disciplines there are, I think doing them all makes you a really rounded sports person. So I guess something like swimming, for example, where, there's a fair few different strokes and events. I think if you're competing in them when you're younger, I think it would be very beneficial for you to compete in all of them. Really figure out for yourself which ones you're best at, which ones you're going to thrive in. And even the ones that you don't thrive in, I still think you will have learned something for your other strokes or your other disciplines.
So for you then, what did you learn most from singles that helped you into your doubles and mixed doubles play?
Massively, my movement patterns. So even in doubles, the two of you on a court, so technically your movements are shorter, maybe slightly more explosive. In singles, you're covering a much bigger court, big diagonals. You could probably compare it a little bit to like squash court. You're covering like quite long diagonals in singles. In doubles, you'd have a bit more, space to not have to cover such a big court. So for me, having those footwork patterns from singles, I think really helps me become one of the quickest moving doubles players. So, and I would pride myself on being able to pick shuttles up that nobody else could. For a lot of people, that would have been the rally over. But because my footwork patterns were really well nailed down, I felt I could pick up that shuttle that would have been a winner, and numerous times I would actually win the rally. And for me, that I took a lot of satisfaction from that sort of thing.
In being a pain in the bum and having that person going, you can just leave it hit the floor, just leave it hit the floor.
Yeah, that was, and I think everyone always said, even when I was 11, 12 years old, they just said you would not just let it go. So I think I was always like one of these players that wanted to chase it down no matter what. I think I got a lot of satisfaction from that. But yeah, I think there's so much value to be taken from whatever discipline you play, even if that doesn't end up being your focus.
Yeah. So how, when you get to that 17 and they start sort of transitioning you more into doubles, how does the training change for you then from that point?
So I probably stopped doing any sort of singles focus sessions when I was 18 years old, and it does happen quite organically. It's not something where from one day you're doing it and the next day you're not. It's not like flicking a switch. It's very much, if just say you were training 5 times each week, it would just very, very gradually get less and less and less of the singles, to a point where even in your mind you're probably thinking, I don't know, what's the point in me even doing any more singles? Like, and that and it does kind of get to that point, and then there's a point where you switch and you're like, yeah, I am now a doubles player. And I think in that sense it could probably happen quite overnight and be like, okay, yeah, you realize I've been training doubles and mixed for a couple of years now. I've not really realized it. In a sense, I've done some singles, but in general, I'm basically a doubles and mixed player at this point. And that's when you kind of accept it and be like, yep, okay. And now I either like, I'm a full-time doubles and mixed player now, or I'm a full-time singles player. And I think everyone's journey is probably quite similar through the junior pathway. And by 18, I think everybody has fallen into one of the brackets. There's very, very few that continue into senior badminton without specialising.
So before we get into your very successful partnership with Chris, was there any big influences or mentors whilst you were a junior that made like a really lasting impression on you?
Well, I mean, through juniors, I had a heck of a lot of coaches. I had some that were more local to me, county level and national level. I personally, I have one coach in mind that, what age was I? Again, 15, 16 maybe. I was still playing all 3 events, and I was just having a real slump in that for the first time in my career, I wasn't getting selected to play for England in the international events. And I was I was thinking, oh, should I carry on? And I spent one summer going to see this new coach. It was just a one-on-one situation. And I went to see him twice per week for the school holidays. I think in total I did it for about 8 weeks. And I went back to the first tournament and I absolutely whipped everyone in singles. And it was like, and it was one of these, like, that level I was playing at the time, I shouldn't have really won anywhere near winning that tournament.
Right.
And I couldn't believe in just 8 weeks that it managed to transform me into a player that was so comfortable on court, having had very little confidence, to all of a sudden being like, yeah, I know what I need to do, clear mind.
Was there anything he like said or did that really turned the switch, or was it literally just over the 8 weeks, just gradually happened?
Yeah, I think he just introduced some consistency into me, like not just into my badminton, but just mentally as well. Every week we did some really tough training, but it was very focused on these really small things that I needed to work on. There was some movement-based stuff, some skill-based stuff, but he really just got me focused on what I needed to be doing and made me aware of really, really important things, especially within the junior badminton, things that can make a huge difference but it doesn't take a lot to change them.
Do you want to share some secrets?
There was a couple of things that he changed in my movement. Very hard to explain without standing up and showing you. And to me, they made a massive, massive difference. And also there was a real big awareness about how many unforced mistakes that I was making. And it was the same across almost all junior badminton. You know, there's a lot of mistakes going, and the ones that were winning a lot of the time were just consistent. They weren't doing anything spectacular, nothing special. It was just consistent. And they lost some rallies, but they won more than they lost. And ultimately, that was all that really mattered.
So it sounded like you had a total shift to your mindset and how you played then as well.
100%. There's an acceptance of, you know, let them have their special rally, you know, that's going to feature on the top 10. But, you know, I'm going to win 10 more rallies that are going to be a little bit boring. And that was that, you know, you're going with the odds rather than always trying to play the special point or the special shot. You play the rally to its conclusion every time. There's no rush. You're fit enough, so you don't need to worry about having to rush to finish or finish a rally or attack before you need to. Again, it's having this like patience, and I think it almost brought a maturity to my game that I didn't have before, and that a lot of players don't actually get it until maybe they're going into their 20s. And I felt very, very lucky that I managed to kind of stumble across him when I did.
Did that make you start believe that you could go pro and be one of the best players then?
I thought that I could be a full-time player, and I thought that I could compete with good players, and I genuinely had a lot of self-belief that I was good at badminton, and you know I thought I could do something, but I never knew that I would really be able to do anything at the very highest level. You know, obviously you dream, you're like, oh, I want to be world number 1. I want to win world and Olympic medals and all this sort of stuff. But I don't think you ever truly know or believe that it's going to happen, because it happens to such a small amount of people. You know, no matter how, there's some amazing players have never won anything, like not won like major titles. They've been amazing throughout their career, but when it came to like these really big important, they didn't quite manage it. So you know, I feel that I feel quite lucky now that I've had these opportunities and I've managed to grab hold of some of them as well.
Yeah, well, it's like you say. I mean, Djokovic only won his only Olympic gold, you know, in 2024. And how many majors has he won? It's like you say, if he doesn't get it then,
yeah,
he ends up with the most majors and no gold.
Well, absolutely. And it could, in tennis, you could say that how many good tennis players are there that have never won a Grand Slam, that, you know, have never won Olympics. Obviously, it's every 4 years, but even a slam, you know, there's 4 every year, and some awesome players, and they might have got to a semi-final or a final, but they've always just fallen short. So they may never be remembered in the same way, even though they're amazing players. That's sport, and I think that's what makes sport so interesting as well.
Yeah, especially when it's, like I say, it's on the day, isn't it? And like the Olympics, Commonwealth being every 4 years, it's very, very much up and down, and you got to very much seize the opportunity, haven't you?
Yeah, that and with that comes a lot of pressure as well. You know, any event that is relatively rare, or you know, comes around every now and again, no matter what people say, every athlete feels pressure of some sort. And in general, the higher the level you are, the more pressure you're going to feel. You know, that everyone loves the underdog because there's no pressure and they can play how they want to. But you know, for Djokovic, who's been at the top, just as an example, for so long, there's always a target on his back. every single time. Like, it must be exhausting. Like, I couldn't even imagine what it's like. And I've played to a high level in badminton, and I've had a target on my back when I've played lower. People who are ranked lower than myself. But I have always had people ranked higher than me also. So I've always had something to aim towards. To aim my gun at as well.
Yeah.
For people who as dominant as Djokovic, and there are also people in badminton who have been as dominant. It must just be, hats off to go week after week, winning competition after competition. Like, that takes some serious mental strength to be able to get through that, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely agreed with that. Well, we'll go into your professional career. How on earth, how did the partnership with Chris come about?
It was actually quite lucky. So I was not on the radar as such. So there was 4 English men who were all playing together, and I was like the fifth one. And I kind of like was playing with a few different partners, and I kept kind of rotating around a little bit. But my feeling was that there was the 4 lads. I can play at their level, but that I felt like maybe the ones below me were like a slightly lower level. So I was always chomping at the bit to say, I'd love to have an opportunity to play with any of those four guys. And it was really lucky. So one of them decided to focus completely on mixed doubles.
Oh, right.
He stopped playing men's doubles, which meant there was going to be a shake-up in the doubles partnerships. So that meant Chris, who was playing with somebody else, Chris started playing with me, and his partner started playing with the partner of the one who moved to mixed. And that's kind of how it started. And I'd say straight away, me and Chris clicked very, very, very quickly. There was certain parts of our game we needed to improve, but sometimes in doubles, sometimes everything's like a real effort. Like everything you do together, it's like, oh, flipping out, that didn't work. Oh, no. And you work on it, and you eventually you kind of like work it out. But as soon as I stepped on court with Chris, we both just fell into this real rhythm, and it felt really natural. We always knew where each other was going, and very, very quickly we were like, yeah, this actually feels right.
I imagine that's probably quite important because it's such a small space, regardless of how big or small you are. It is tiny.
Yeah. And if you're not 100% in tune with one another, you can be smashing each other's rackets. You can be, ending up in the same part of the court. Obviously, that's of no use whatsoever. So as much as communication is key, there is an element of understanding between you where, you don't even have to look at them. You know exactly where they are, depending on what shot's been played. And that's what I always really enjoyed about doubles, was that it wasn't just about you. It was about working with your partner against 2 other people who were trying to do the exact same thing. So with Chris, it was an unlikely scenario that came about. And actually, I don't think when the partnerships were first put together, Chris was maybe like, that would be my impression. But I think after a few weeks together, I think he kind of saw, actually, this could work really well.
He probably saw you picking up all the shuttlecocks. I thought, hang on a minute.
I found someone to run around me, yeah.
Yeah. Is that what makes you guys work so well?
I think there is an element of that. I think Chris is also about 4 years older than I am. And I think that was really good because we knew our roles. There was no conflict. So often I found when you were playing with somebody that was your age, there was like a bit of a battle between am I more experienced than you? Like, who's going to take the lead here? Like, yeah. It was very clear. Chris had played more games at a higher level. He was more experienced. So from the very beginning, like, I was quite happy to follow him because he was more experienced. And as we got more and more comfortable together, Chris, because he because I just gave him the control, he was also very happy after a while to just kind of be like, oh, actually, Max, you can really take control of the court today. So there's no like ego battles that are going on within your partnership. Whereas I think in certain partnerships, there is definitely a bit of that going on. It's that I want to be in charge, not I want to be in charge. But ultimately, it doesn't matter who's in charge. And I think Chris would tell you the same. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter who's playing well. If we win that game, there's no other notes about who's been in charge of the match. So for us, it was all about getting over the line, really. And if we did, then happy days.
So it was sort of the biggest shock for you moving into seniors, working alongside Chris. Was the biggest shock when you started playing the tournaments?
When I first started playing with Chris, I was actually very, very ready. I felt ready to push on a lot earlier than I was. So I think I was about 25 when I started playing with Chris, and I'd been training full time since I was around 18. So I've been going for about 7 years, and I would say 2 to 3 years of that, I felt really ready to progress, and I felt a bit held back. So when I actually got this opportunity with Chris, I didn't feel like it was a shock. I was actually right. I'm ready, and I'm going to make this work. This is like my opportunity to make it work. I'm finally playing with someone who is probably better than me. Certainly, when I first started playing with him, and he's more experienced than I am. This is what I've been waiting for, and I knew I had to make it work. I was like, this is the chance that I've been waiting for.
So what kept you, because that's a long time, full time from 18 to 25, felt you were ready for 2 or 3 years. But, that's a lot of patience and a lot of resilience to just keep training, because the training sessions are not going to be easy. But what kept you going and everything with it? Yeah,
it's a good question, because when I look back now, I'm like, I don't know if I could have persevered for that long. I had a lot of different partners. I was skipping between partners for quite a few years. I was playing mixed, I was playing doubles, and then I was playing both, so I just had to have a really, really big focus on my own personal development. I couldn't think about tournaments and competitions too much, because I knew I wasn't really getting the opportunity there, which was fine. So I put a really big focus on personal development and what can I do to be as ready as I can be when the opportunity arises. So I put a big focus on my fitness. If ever I was really annoyed, frustrated for whatever reason, I usually used to hit my physical training quite hard. It was like a real release for me to be like, I need to get this out, and the best way to do that was to attack the physical side of my game. And other than that, I spent a lot of time on the feeding side of the court. So it was a bit of a learning journey for me about how I can also improve being the feeding. So, I might have been feeding the guys who were older than me and more, and I was like, okay, that's fine. I need to do it, but I also need to find a way to make it beneficial for myself. I can't just do it and not get anything from it. So as long as I had a focus and there was something to concentrate on, for me, I could always see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
I think that's an important thing, because you'll see a lot of juniors where if they're not like top 3, top 5, they might like fade away, go, I'm not going to make it. And then you're saying 25, that's, some people would have thinking, oh, well, Alcaraz won a Grand Slam at this age, or if you go in squash, oh, well, this young woman called Amina Orfi, who's, even though she's 17, she's won 4 junior world titles. So some people go, oh, yeah, I'm not as good, done. And then you've just kept going and going and going and going.
But the thing is, not everyone is going to have the exact same journey on their career. If you persist, you have no idea what could be around the corner. Alcaraz, for example, amazing. He'll probably go down as one of the greatest tennis players ever, I'm sure, by the time he's finished. But I would guess there will also be another tennis player that will come along in 3 or 4 years. He won't be 18. He'll probably be mid-20s, maybe mid-20s, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, well, yeah, Alcaraz he's won 10 slams already, but he's and this new guy's managed to put two slams on the table in a couple of years, and well, actually, that's pretty good as well, and it's so it's pretty good. It's very good.
Yeah. Well, you go back to Djokovic. I think he's won either half or just under half of his slams after turning 30.
Yeah.
And it's how it goes.
And there is a bit of luck. There is a bit of timing. There are a few different things that come into, the final product, that being the result. But ultimately, if you don't stick in, you'll never actually know. And I think for me, that would have hurt me a lot more if I just got into my 20s and well, it's never going to happen and stopped. Yeah, I can go and do my normal job, whatever that's going to be. But I knew it'd be nagging in the back of my mind. It's like, well, if I'd carried on for a bit longer, would I ever have got a chance? And if I did get a chance, what would I have done? And I couldn't have lived with that, I don't think.
No, I think that's spoken to a few people now, and that does seem to be the difference between the top people, is that no, I've got to stick at it. I believe I can do something. I've got to just keep on going.
Yeah.
And obviously you and Chris went into Rio. Fantastic end result, but realistically, what were you guys? Because you weren't seeded in the top 4, and you were seeded 3 in your own group. What were your expectations going into it?
Going into it, there was almost zero. And not as in like, oh, we don't think we're going to win a game. There just wasn't oh, we want to medal, we want to try and progress from the groups. There's none of that. For us, we were so stressed through the qualification period for the Rio Games. So in badminton, it's a full 12-month period. And your best 10 tournaments out of you can play as many as you want. You can play a tournament every week if you want, but your best 10 make up your ranking. That's kind of how it works. And at the end of the qualification, that's when they basically will just take the list, and the top in doubles, the top 16 will be taken. So from the very first day of qualification to the last, it's just stress. It's stress. And I'm sure it's very different. Again, maybe in swimming they have one race, and that is like, yeah, this is qualification, this race is, and that's it. So, and then in some ways that's horrible, because someone might just have an off day, and they're just not going. Whereas we do get the whole year, but it's also a whole year of stress. So for me, there's pros and cons to both, and we went right down to the wire as well. So it was in the 11th month, and we still weren't guaranteed our place. I think the very last tournament, actually, we were still fighting, and that was the week before the cutoff. So it was so stressful for us. And I think from the end of qualification, we had 2.5 months before the Rio Games. So it was the time to kind of decompress, relax, and then start building our training back up. But I think we kind of felt like we'd already won, because the stress of that qualification was so high. We just got to a point where it was almost relief that we'd qualified. So when we went there, it didn't feel as stressful as I really thought it would, and because of that, I actually stepped on court, and from the first point, I actually really enjoyed every minute of it. And you can
that was a big help.
Yeah, 100%. Because you can see when you're playing some other players, you can see the tension that has just built up in them, and especially maybe like the seeded players that are expected to do well. They were qualified a few, like 6 months in. They knew they were going, so they've had a lot more time to think about it, focus on it, which is great. But it can also create a lot more pressure. And when we were playing, we couldn't believe how well we were playing. and how much pressure we were able to put on these players who are ranked quite a lot higher than us. And obviously, the more this happens, the more you end up in like enjoying it, and it's like a bit of a snowball in that regard. But the whole week was just, it felt like after each and every match, it felt like we improved every single one, got more confident, more comfortable. And when I look back, it was some of our best badminton. And again, I feel lucky in a way that we were able to produce that at probably one of the most important competitions we ever played in. So yeah, it's amazing.
So you got through the groups, and the group stages were messy, weren't they? There was quite a few where like 3 teams had all beaten each other, and it was, I mean, you guys you'd won 2-0, 2-1, and then the one match you'd lost, it was 2-1. So you guys had probably the best chance of going through, because you won or lost 2-1.
Yeah,
and then you got through to the quarters. Weren't meant to win your quarters either.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, against them Japanese, we never would have expected to beat them. I think they were ranked in the top 4, I think, at the time. So we went on court again. Let's just see what we can do. That was the approach. Obviously, we'd done some analysis on them to try and figure out how we can best play. But our mentality very much was, we played well so far. We've played 3 great games, and there's no reason why we can't carry it on. And yeah, we won in 2 very close games, and we progressed forward to the semi-finals.
At semi-final stages, are you thinking medals, or were you just still in disbelief that, oh my God, we're through to the final 4?
I would say even when we got to the semi-finals, I still didn't think that we'd finish with a medal around our necks. I think it was still, at that point, it seemed like a long way away. And it was, out of everyone that we were going to play, they were probably the worst ones for us. Because I'm sure it's the same again in squash or any sport. It's like different styles that you play against. For some reason, it just doesn't work for you. And they were very much that in the semi-final. But the most frustrating thing was, so they beat the pair that we beat in the group game really, really close, and they actually should have lost to that pair that we beat, and then we'd have been in the semi-final against that pair again. And
that you'd already beaten.
In our minds, we were just like, oh, what could have been? But in that moment, when you've lost in the semi-final, there's a day off before you play again. So you have time to think about what's coming up and how important it is. For those guys that have made the final, obviously you want to be the champion and you want to win the gold. But if you don't, you're still going to have a silver medal put around your neck, and you're still going to be on that podium, and you're going to feel very proud about what you've achieved. Nobody is going to remember 4th place.
No. Do you remember 4th place?
Well, I know the guys we played, but no, there's no podium for 4th place in the Olympics. So there's a lot of attention goes onto the bronze medal, because there's going to be someone who is devastated because they've come really, really close and just haven't quite made it.
Did you feel the pressure? Because everything you talk is agreeing with what I think, which is that 3rd, 4th match is so hard, because, like you say, for one of you, you've come as close to getting a medal as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think there was some pressure, but again, nowhere near as much as I thought there would be.
No?
I was completely content and happy with how we played that week. That I felt like I could just let it out, and if we lost, then we played the 2nd Chinese pair in that playoff, in the bronze playoff. We played the first ones in the semi-final, the second ones in the bronze, and I still don't think we were expecting ourselves to win, just as we weren't expecting ourselves to beat the Korean pair in the group stage, or we weren't expecting to beat the Japanese pair in the quarterfinal. So to me, I was like, all right, it might not happen, but it can happen. I don't expect it to happen, but I know it can if everything goes right. And I think having that approach again helped us quite a lot. And that week actually taught both me and Chris quite a lot in how to set your expectations, because you've proved to yourself that you can play at the highest level against the best players in the world. But a lot of the time you put so much pressure on yourself, you can never actually play to your highest level. So this whole feeling of, I know we can do it, I know we can, but I don't expect us to. We don't have to expect this of ourselves, but we know that we're capable of it. For me, that gave me a bit of freedom to really let myself go, to really throw the kitchen sink at a match and not be worried about the outcome. And you could definitely do that a lot more when you were playing against players who were maybe a little bit higher level or higher ranked than you are. And it was game after game in the Olympics where we did that, and I think, well, it did work really well.
Is that sort of your lasting memory of that Olympic run then, is that sort of defying your expectations and then allowing yourself to reset that going forward?
Yeah, I think that's the thing I'll take as a learning point. I mean, I've got many memories from Rio that were really good fun, but certainly a learning point is how to approach sport in general. The fact, in that moment, no matter who you are, what level you play in, what age you are, in that moment, that match is the most important thing in the world. It's like, to you, it's like, if I don't win, I might die. It's like, it's that important. But the amount of times you come off, the world carries on turning. You go for dinner, you go for breakfast the following morning, and the world carries on the same. You go back to training, or you go back to work, or whatever, and everything's fine. Whether you've won or lost, it's like everything is still okay. It's not, and again, it takes a long, long time, and you can't explain that to someone who's really young. It's only through kind of going through that experience of kind of like losing and being devastated and being like, I'm disappointed in myself because I didn't maybe perform exactly how I wanted to. And if you can get to that point where you can take the handcuffs off and be able to just release whatever your best is.
Yeah.
And if you don't win, like, for me, I could always live with that, because I was like, I played really well. I'm really happy with that. They played really good. But I got really frustrated when I came off, and I was like, I was bad there. I was just really not good enough. That really stuck with me. So I really wanted to find a solution for that sort of feeling.
What is your solution?
Well, other than being able to just, like I say, find that way to be able to commit 100% and not be worried about if you lose. To me, it was more about not worrying about what other people thought of you, or so I think there is a lot of that. I've started coaching a bit more recently, and there's a lot of concern about what people think of you externally, and some people put pressure on themselves for sure, but I think there is a lot of what do they think I'm any good, like what do they think about, like, and as soon as you can, I'm not saying you shouldn't care, because you should care to a point, but in terms of sport, I think you have to be really focused within. Can't be worried about hopefully the thousands of people or millions of people that are watching your game. You're like, that's all good. They've come to watch, they've come to be entertained, and that's it. There's nothing more. They're no more involved in my life than I am. And they've just come to watch because they like badminton. So there's nothing personal that I should take about. They say, "Oh, Mark didn't play well today." I shouldn't be worried about that.
Yeah.
So for me, that, but again, it's linked to this, just not to letting yourself just play.
Yeah.
People could say, "Oh, Marcus didn't do this well enough," or Marcus didn't. If I thought that I'd done the best that I could on that day, then for me, I was okay with that. I wasn't like win or lose. I was like, did I play well?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're saying like other people's opinion. I mean, they're not on the court.
Exactly.
They might say, Marcus's drops were rubbish, and you might be like, yeah, you see how hard he was hitting it at my face?
Yeah. No, exactly. And you see it across all, like football in our country is wild, isn't it? You see people who think they could be manager of like Man City or Liverpool or whatever.
Yeah.
And you don't know until you're the same with when England go to like a World Cup or a Euros, it's horrible. Like the people, the media, like everything is so negative, and you can't blame the players for feeling how they feel because they'll see it all, they'll read it all, and how are you supposed to play your best when it's almost impossible? And every other sport it'll never be quite like that, but it will be probably on a slightly smaller scale. So I think being able to deal with that is probably half the battle.
Before we go into your transitions doing mixed doubles, last question of the Olympics, how has that medal changed you? Because you're now always going to be not just Marcus Ellis, the Olympian, you are Marcus Ellis, bronze medalist.
I don't think about it a lot, to be honest. It's when I think when we won, me and Chris were unsure about if we were like, is this going to really change anything? Like, are we just going to carry on the same? Are we going to, are we going to end up having all these like weird sponsorship issues and all these? And yeah, I mean, there was some great stuff that came from being an Olympic medalist, but our lives didn't change that much, and we carried on very much the same because we enjoyed playing. There was no, there was no like unlimited amount of red carpet events or like this, that, and the other that we would ever go to. We just were like, right, yeah. And in badminton, I don't know if it's the same in squash or whatever, but after the Olympics, it was like a few 2-3 weeks, and there was another tournament again.
Yeah,
and a high level one as well. And you kind of just like, fall back in, like, let's go. And yeah, it changed our lives it gave us some good opportunities, and I would say it didn't change our lives in that sense.
Was Gail Ems or Nathan Robinson? I know obviously it was 12 years prior to that they got their silver, but how did they manage to help you guys at all during that process?
Yeah, I mean, I did speak to them a little bit afterwards about what to expect. Kind of, is there anything that we should look out for? Is there anything that we should or shouldn't be doing? Obviously outside of badminton, I mean. And yeah, I mean, they gave some really useful advice, and it was, you can choose as much as you want to use your Olympic medal for outside of badminton purposes. You can try and do lots of different stuff, but if you are still a full-time player, a full-time athlete, I think their general advice was, whilst you're still playing at full, just be a full-time player, because you won't be one forever. So you have to just enjoy it, and if you're on a good roll, like, just continue the good roll, like, see if you can carry it on. And yeah, I think they did it very well. They, after they medalled, they continued being dominant for a few years after that. I think they still got world medals a couple of years later, and so yeah, they did a fantastic job at being able to go week after week, year after year, being consistently good.
Yeah. So after the Olympics, you started doing a bit more mixed doubles, didn't you?
I did. So this was I started doing this because the Commonwealth Games was in 2018, and you need to qualify. So you need to get to a certain ranking to be eligible for selection. So Chris and I were playing doubles, and Lauren and her partner were playing doubles. So we just needed to get to myself and Lauren had to get to a certain ranking, and we would be able to be eligible to get into the Commonwealth Games draw. So I can't remember exactly what date it was, but we started playing together, and we were like, we could do with one full year before the games to actually try and, if we want to have a chance of medaling, establish ourselves and actually make it work. So we gave ourselves as long as we could to get ready.
So it's the biggest challenges going from, same-sex doubles to mixed doubles?
Honestly, as disciplines go, I always preferred mixed doubles. Just how the game works. Again, it's very hard to just explain it, but for me, mixed doubles is like very cat and mouse, whereas in level doubles, it's just very aggressive. It's very fast, and it's who can do it the fastest, basically.
Right.
Mixed is a lot more like, oh, I'm tempting you, I'm crossing, and so like, for example, the woman in a mixed court is constantly trying to be exposed, and for me that was always like really fun. Like, it was a high skill kind of who can do it better kind of thing, and I always really enjoyed that. Even myself and Chris, we didn't play mixed, but we kind of had like our roles where he would always go forward and I was always come back. So we didn't play mixed on doubles court, but some people would say that we had this kind of agreement. So I actually preferred mixed. So I quite quickly just adapted back into that sort of game.
How did you find playing mixed with Lauren, obviously with her being your partner?
Well, we were actually became off-court partners after that.
Oh, it was afterwards?
But not too long. I think it was in 2018, I think. We actually, so we were playing together for, I'd guess, 9 months or something along those lines before we started being off-court partners.
Who was it who made the idea of, why don't we go for dinner but not wear our trackies?
I'm going to say Lauren did that.
Well, she's not here to defend herself.
She might be through there, but I'm sticking with my side. And I think we both knew that the risks when you're doing that, because you can really muddy any waters if one of them goes sideways, especially your off-court partnership. I think if was that not to work out, it would take a lot of maturity to then say, we're not going to let this affect our on-court partnership. So I think we both knew going into it that could have happened, So, but luckily,
it all worked out. And
we made it work. Yeah.
You've got your successes off court, obviously. You're a lovely little boy, but your successes on court. Do you have a favourite? Because you guys did a lot: European gold, Commonwealth medals, World Tour finals.
I think if you ask me and Lauren, we might say different things, because she's a lot more results based than I am. So she's a lot more about the win and the loss. I really enjoy certain environments or tournaments because of, I don't know, just for example, my favourite moment may very well be at the All England in Birmingham. The year I think we made to the semi-final. Played some, I think we played some of the best we've played. and just having however many thousands of people there watching us. It was like the arena in Birmingham. It was packed out, and to have that, everyone cheering just for you. It was a really, really special 2 or 3 days where you don't get that very often.
No.
And for me, that was probably one of the most memorable times that we had on court together.
And what do you think Lauren would say?
She might say that. I'm not sure, but I would guess it would be something that we won. It might be like, it could be the European Games, something like that. Because we also overcame in 2018, we lost in the final of the Commonwealths to the English pair that we beat in the final of the European Games. So it kind of felt like we'd righted a wrong a little bit.
Yeah.
And in the Commonwealth final, I think we felt we had the game. I think we were completely in control, and we kind of let it slip a little bit, and we ended up losing. So I think going those couple of years, 1 year down the line, to win the European Games against the same pair, and again, it was a fantastic performance. I think we really just felt like we'd put something right that we didn't get right before.
Yeah, imagine that's very, very satisfying, because it's not like me playing a local league match. It's literally written down that you managed to right that wrong. What was the biggest changes you guys had going into it, or were you just like switched to another level?
I just think we were maybe not quite experienced enough as a pair. And another year down the line, we were a bit more bulletproof. And I think we were just a bit more resilient to changes in the game and how momentum works, things like that. Whereas in the Commonwealths, maybe we were a little naive, and we played into their hands a little bit. So that I think that made it all the more satisfying, because not only had we won, but we realised how far we'd actually come, in terms of our development and what kind of level we can play at.
And then obviously in theory it should have been Commonwealth 2018, European the following year, Tokyo the following year.
Yeah.
Obviously COVID happens, throws everything into chaos, and we don't actually do Tokyo until 2021.
Yeah.
Obviously mixed feelings for you. We'll go with, obviously you went there with Lauren and you competed in the mixed. How was that for you, moving 3 years, and you went from just starting to Olympics with her?
Yeah, it was amazing, and again we were up against the other English pair who were playing to a really high level. So again, it was a very stressful qualifying period for us, but we went there with really high hopes. Before the Olympic Games, we'd competed well against every single pair, very, very top pairs in the world, beaten some of them as well. So we were absolutely full of confidence when we went there, and we played really, really well. Again, I was really, really pleased with how we played. I think we played. I think we beat the Thailand pair, who were ranked maybe 3 in the world at the time. Really, we were absolutely loving it, going through top in our group into the quarterfinals, and unfortunately we lost in the quarters to a pair that we were also really confident. Like, we went on and we were like, yeah, we can definitely have you. But that was maybe the first game where I would say we didn't really play how we wanted to. But in that game, I would also say really big credit to the pair, to the Hong Kong pair, because they also made us play that way. So it's sometimes you have to say well done to them as well, because it's not all just how you do. It's also
as we mentioned, it's how well your opponent lets you play to a degree.
And they did play very cleverly. They'd done their homework against us, and and again, it's a big learning thing for us. So it was good.
Say it's one match, and that's it. Unfortunately, as much as that experience was great for you, you obviously had the disappointment that you couldn't defend your bronze medal with Chris. I don't know how much you want to talk about that, but you must have been very disappointed with it, as in theory, from what I understand, you two should have been the selected pair.
Yeah, I mean, we very much assumed we would be selected. After the selection was made, there was a very long, drawn out appeals process that went on.
Because didn't you win one appeal, but then it got like turned back over again?
Yeah, so I mean basically what happened, it got overturned in that they said that you didn't carry out the selection properly and you have to do it again.
Right.
So it was, in a way, yeah, we won, but in another way, it was basically just like have another stab at,
Yeah. They went, okay, we'll do it again. We're going to pick the same people.
Yeah, and I think for me, if they hadn't carried it out correctly, there should have been another panel probably put in place to carry out the selection, but it was the same panel was used again. So, and to be honest, if I was on that panel, I wouldn't want to be proven that I'd made the wrong decision. So I'd want to stick by kind of what we decide. I understand. Yeah. I understand that. Like, but yeah, in my opinion, there are a few different criteria for the selection. So it's not just who's the highest ranked. There are a couple of other. I think there was 5 in total, but there's no real explanation as to which carries more weight, or so there's all these sort of grey areas in the selection where it was quite painful. But myself and Chris were quite. I don't know how many places higher in the rankings, but quite considerably. And we fought it for as long as we could. But in the end, it just didn't work out. It was really sad, because I would have loved to. I think that probably would have been Chris's last competition, because I think he was thinking about winding down after that, because he was getting to a point where I think he was at retirement age. So it was for me, it was more sad for Chris, because that's the way his career kind of finished. Obviously, I still went there, played mixed, and I played really well, and I was really happy with it. I just didn't want our partnership career to have finished that way. I think it was a bit that was like the saddest thing, more than the Olympics itself.
Who would have helped you through that? Because you guys would have been together for well over half a decade.
Yeah, it was.
This would be difficult to emotionally process as well.
Yeah, it was. Honestly, it was awful, and I don't want to go back and say some of the things, even though I still stand by it. Some of the stuff, and I don't think Chris was treated properly. I don't think I was particularly treated properly. Just for example, I'd not been selected for doubles, but I was selected for mixed. But my training was so heavily impacted because of how all these like things that luckily I went there and I played really well and I was really happy.
Yeah.
If I'd gone there and I'd underperformed, I'd have been wondering like, what if I'd had a good preparation? And and there's just so many things going through your head, and I just want I do look back at my career quite positively, and I think Chris does too. But I would have really liked someone to help Chris, especially, like transition from being an athlete to whatever he was going to do next in a really positive way. because he kind of was in the building one day and he was out the building the next, and he kind of never came back. So
from somebody he was probably doing 6-7 days a week.
Exactly, and it was a big change that happened overnight, and yeah, I just wanted better for him. I wanted a better end to our partnership together. But yeah.
Well, partnership on the court. You're still partners in crime.
We absolutely are.
With Badminton Skills, which we will go into, because a lot has changed for you since that Olympics and wind down, as you've already mentioned. You and Lauren have welcomed a lovely baby boy into the world. How has that sort of changed your perspective of things, having a little one?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know how people do a full-time job and like manage to manage everything in their life whilst trying to raise a child or numerous children in many cases. It's a big change, but you also wouldn't change it either. It's like one of them things you're like, I don't have any me time anymore. I don't have any freedom to do stuff, but I wouldn't change it though. I love it.
Do you find you're now finding when people are like, who don't have kids, like, I'm so busy, I've got no free time, and you're there going, wait till you have like a 2-year-old.
Yeah, exactly that. And everyone that's got older kids than me said, just you wait till they start running around. Just you wait till they're at school. Like, just you. And I'm sure, but you'll enjoy every part of it, no matter how stressful it is. And I've kind of realised after having a few months away from badminton that I really wanted to still be involved in badminton. Now, I wanted to have a really short break and decide if I want to come back in straight away or not. And even though I'm super busy at home with Milo, I do want to do stuff in badminton because I feel like I can give back a little bit as well. I always wondered if I could be a good coach whilst I was playing, and I never really knew. I was like, I don't know. And I think anyone who says, "Oh, I'll be a great coach," I don't
Those
think
are the rubbish ones.
Yeah, I don't think you really know. So I wanted to be as open as I could about it, but I think having dipped my toe in, I think I can definitely help people. I feel like I.
So how did the partnership with Badminton Skills go about? I spoke to Jethro a few weeks ago, and he went through it, how the whole process went. We never talked about how it actually came about.
So Jethro, I believe, went to university with Chris, and so he was running squash skills, and they wanted to go into different sports, and I think badminton was the first chosen one. And obviously, because he knew Chris from back when, he messaged Chris and said, we've got this project we want to do. Would you be interested in doing the badminton specific side of it and creating all the content and all the exercises, coaching, all this sort of stuff for the app? And I think Chris was interested, but I think he was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it all on my own.
Yeah.
So then Chris called me and he said, look, we've got this kind of opportunity come. Chris had wanted to do something like that for a while. So he'd wanted to, I think, create everything himself. So he'd wanted to even create the app himself and do all that sort of stuff. So he said, well, this is kind of like a good middle ground where, we can have someone who's experienced already, that's already got a successful app. So that side we don't need to worry about. All we need to do is create everything that's related to badminton. And I'm with tech, I have no idea. So for me, like building the app was something that I could never really do. So I said, well, what's the harm in giving it a go? I mean, there is competition out there, in that there's a couple of companies or apps, YouTube channels doing a similar sort of thing, but not the same. But there's no reason why we can't build something better. So we said, right, yeah, let's give it a go. We had a few visits of a few days where we were filming all day, like, as you know, trying to get as much stuff as we could. We wrote it all down before we went. Every single exercise we could think of, every coaching tip we could think of, every movement, every grip, every.
How big was that? That must have been a full notepad.
Yeah, well, it was ridiculous. Just an Excel sheet, and it just went on and on. But it, you know, and we've come back and we've like always, because as you're filming, you say, oh yeah, we need this as well, we need this as well, and even now we're still adding to the sheet of stuff for our next filming, and it just keeps going and going and going. So when Jethro told us, he was like, oh, we have 3,000 videos or something on squash skills of, it's all fit, you know, it's not just squash, it's fitness, it's, you know, all these different stuff, and we've got 3,000 exercises are. But once you break everything down, you know, whether it's, you might not just be doing a certain exercise, but you might be doing stuff for different durations because you're working on your fitness, or maybe you're working on, you know, having like sharper movement for a shorter period of time. And once you break it down, there are so many different things that you can implement into a coaching session for people. And that's what I quite like about it, because yeah, we've built the core base of it, but we can always add so much more. There's so much more we can put on there, and we're trying our best. Like it's just gonna take us time to get a really full, comprehensive library of stuff.
Let's say that's. I mean, you've got time, and I mean, I imagine you find you were probably filming, you know, a lob or a drop or whatever you were filming, going, oh, actually, we didn't put this on the sheet. We need to put this down and this down, and oh, we need to put this for doubles, but we need to put this for singles. And it's, you know, like obviously squash, Jethro's background, it's yes, this doubles squash, but it's mainly singles. Like 99% of it's singles. Well, badminton is pretty evenly split, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite even. And like you say, it's like, yeah, this is a singles exercise and this is a doubles exercise. Well, actually, this exercise could be suitable for both. So we need to make sure it's in both and it is a lot. And to be honest, that was a real headache for the guys building the app and making sure that everything was in the right place so people could select a certain category and a certain, you know, standard of play, and you'll be given everything that was relevant to you. So I have to say fair play to them. They came over some real hurdles to kind of make it work.
Have you had feedback as people like come up to you and go like, oh, I really love this video? Or
yeah, well, we've been quite so we have a forum on the app, and we've been quite open with people and said, look, myself and Chris are available on this chat. I want you to tell us if you like something, if there's stuff that you think is missing, or things that you think, well, could really do with that to actually improve on this. Like, just let us know, because straight away that can go on our Excel sheet, ready to film, and we can put it in the appropriate places in the app for when you next do your session. So ultimately, we can come up with as many tips and exercises as possible, but if there are things that are missing, you know, we're never going to do everything perfectly, especially say right at the beginner level. Someone might just want something so simple as to saying like, well, how should I hold this racket like when I'm doing this shot? Like something really, really simple, and it might be something that Chris and I had completely kind of looked over. And you know, we, like I say, because there's thousands of different things we can put on there, we're really happy to hear the feedback, because ultimately they need to get what they want out of the app. It's we can make a really comprehensive app, but we want to feel like they're getting the value out of it, that they're actually learning something. You know, only then have we got a really successful product, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously you and Chris have been elite for so many years. There's going to be things that are now second nature to you that you forgot. Oh yeah, I remember doing that for a few weeks to do this.
And we've actually talked as well about having a section for even like schools and things like that. I think it would be really, really useful where people can, and it might be, again, really super simple exercises that you can just do in a hall with like kids in a line or whatever, but we can actually introduce them to badminton, and maybe a PE teacher could use it as to get some sort of inspiration for like how can we actually get them into playing badminton rather than just whacking a shuttle straight over the net. Can we engage them in some way to try and focus them to try and do a specific task? Or and I think that's really, really good, because we can help people who are already playing, whether they're at club level or county, national level. But me and Chris are really, really passionate about kids playing as well. We want kids to pick up a racket and actually think, oh, it's quite a good sport, and actually give it, because outside of football, cricket, rugby, every sport has the same issues, I think, with participation. I'm sure squash is the same. We want to try and encourage people to give it a go, because until you give it a go, you never know.
You don't know, no. And I think people miss out on, obviously, like games and all that. People are like, oh yeah, but I can chat with my friends over a headset and all that. But it's just like, yeah, but getting onto the court with them, having a muck around, and it's not the same sitting down. You can't see them. You're just pressing a couple of buttons.
100% agree. And and in that sense, it doesn't matter what sport it is.
No,
being able to get out there and play a sport, you can practice your winning, you can practice your losing, you can practice your communication, and all of these things can make you so rounded for when you grow. It could be not in the future skills that you don't use in sport, but I 100% believe that it kind of equips you for the rest of life, like whatever ends up being. I 100% believe that.
Even simple things like self-confidence. You persevering and always going through, always think you were picking up the shuttlecock.
Yeah.
Well, you're in a normal job, they're like, oh, it's going to be a really difficult task. Oh, don't worry, I will do it until it's done.
Exactly. It kind of, I think I've said it a few times in this podcast, but that, like, it is just like a resilience to carry on, and you can carry on in like a positive mindset in a very average situation where you're like, where you might be losing or you might not be getting where you want to go. But I think if, like, especially from a young age, if like you're experiencing that kind of in sport all the time and you don't actually realize, you're like, oh, I lost today, or it won today, it was amazing, or and then you could probably think of every single scenario, and most of them will happen within sport, and you can fit, and you'll figure out how to kind of process it and accept it and deal with it.
And I do a lot of school visits where I'll go in with like a mini squash wall, and when I go to the primary schools, it's all about the same. So obviously you probably experienced some form of sport for the first time, but when I go into the high schools, I can tell who's done a sport and this is their first introduction to any sport. So you see the ones that have done anything at all, they're giving it a go, and if they miss, they're like, can I have another go? And then the ones who've never done anything, if they miss, they're just like, no, here you go. And they're just back in the queue. And it's that perseverance.
And it kind of tells you everything, in my opinion. Again, I know I'm biased, but it tells you everything that you need to know about sport in general. I think you could be the most academic person, but I think if you can make time in your life for some sport, you don't have to be good at it, but you don't have to be good at everything. But it doesn't mean that it's not going to benefit you.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
God, no. I say, before we go, big picture question. Bit tricky with you now picking up the badminton skills, but what sort of, when people look back at your professional career, and then in the future, once you've uploaded your 3,000-4,000 videos for Jethro, what sort of impact and legacy would you have liked to have had?
I'd like to say people would think that I was a good, like, I'd like to think that they would think that I was a good player that achieved results that were maybe beyond what people would have expected for me. And then after my career, I would hope they would say that he did have time, or he made time to kind of give back a little bit. Because the only thing I wouldn't want people to say is that he was quite selfish in his approach, because I always tried to make time, even when I was playing, for other players, like especially like younger players. I always tried to make time for them. So for me, whether I was a player or as a coach, I would like to say that I was relatively selfless, and I was quite relaxed and like quite approachable. So that's, yeah, I'd say like that's how I would like.
So the sounds of it, you're going to be going a lot more into coaching, and you and Chris are going to be doing a lot more to get kids involved in the sport, by the sounds of things already.
We will certainly try our best. If you ever speak to Chris, he is incredibly passionate about coaching, and he was passionate long before he stopped playing badminton. Even when he was younger, he always had an eye for coaching. And when we were playing together, he'd stop in the middle of a practice that we were doing together and go and help someone else on the other court. And I was like, Chris, what are you doing? Like, get yourself back over here. But I think it's amazing, for him to interrupt our own practice to go over to another court to start helping some younger ones, and I think it's great, and I hope that's kind of how people would also view him and me.
I think if they knew who he was, they didn't just think who this strange man is coming over here giving me advice.
No, it was they were part of the group, It wasn't just a random.
Yeah.
Although, to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if he also just went onto a random court either. If he sees someone doing something that he thinks isn't quite right, he'll be happy straight in there. I hope himself.
Oh, no, I say, well, thank you. So you've definitely been very selfless with your time, and I do really, really appreciate it. And we'll certainly, I'm sure, once Badminton Skills picks up even more momentum, because the followers and the likes seems to be going through the roof. And I know when I've spoken to Jeff, so it seems to be doing very well with the uptake and the feedback as well. So yeah, thank you very much for talking about your career and everything that's to come, and I'm sure we'll be talking again very soon.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marcus. Take care.
Yes.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Serving Up with Marcus Ellis. A huge thank you to Marcus for his honesty, his openness, and for sharing not just the medals and the moments we remember, but the years of graft, the setbacks, and the personal growth that shaped him into a world-class athlete. If you're a player, coach, parent, or somebody who just simply loves racket sport, I hope Marcus' journey reminds you that progress isn't linear, and sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come after years of patience, perseverance, and believing you still have more to give. Please check out Marcus and Chris's work on Badminton Skills as well. They're building something genuinely game-changing for the sport, and I'm really excited to see how it progresses myself. And if you enjoyed today's episode, hit a follow, leave a rating, share it with a teammate. It helps us keep growing this fantastic community. Next week, I'm joined by none other than Nick Matthew, one of the greatest squash players of all time, a multi-time world champion, a multi-time Commonwealth gold medalist. You're really not going to want to miss it. And as always, Serving Up is supported by Oliver UK, racket pioneer since 1938. If you're an England squash member, you can go to your membership portal to receive your 20% off code on all Oliver products. That's everything from rackets to clothes to bags and everything in between. And we're also brought to you by ACC Leisure, who are helping secure the future of leisure in the UK. So any of your flooring needs, regardless of the sport, please reach out to them and they'll help you with whatever your needs are. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week when we talk to the Wolf, Nick Matthew.